What's up, everybody? I'm Rachel Cordell, and today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm here with one of my very good friends, Syriinx, a YouTuber, content creator, and all-around amazing person and LARPer. Yeah, this was coming with compliments. And together we attended Coven 1934 in Austin, Texas, which was a fantastic LARP by Jackalope Studios. Oh my gosh. Where do we even begin? This is going to be a little bit of a collab between the two of us, where we have one video over here talking about something, and there's going to be a video over on Syriinx's channel talking about something else. So if you want to go check out what that was, which is basically going to be some
reactions to the story on like the different perspectives from our different sides of the table, basically.
And actually, like, what kind of content do you do? What is the stuff that you like to put on YouTube and Instagram, TikTok?
Mostly focusing on having gone for like multiple hobbies, phasing into LARPing. Then basically first I started doing cosplay stuff, and then I was like, wait, I actually really like TTRPGs, and then it flew naturally to two of them like combined into LARPing, and it's all about the stories you can tell there, what you can get out of it, what your experiences are like there, and also very much encouraging other people to like give it a try, because it's pretty fucking neat.
Yeah,
actually.
right? So if you're coming over from Syriinx's channel to this video, this channel here is a lot about storytelling. Personally, I'm an actress and producer, but I love TTRPGs and LARPing and all different forms of storytelling. So that's kind of what I'm building here. So without further ado, this video, I want to talk about the impact of storytelling through LARP, because I anticipate a lot of people watching this, if you're one of my regular subscribers, is not a LARPer at your core. So I want to share this medium with you and entice you into exploring this art form, because it's so impactful. And like you said, it is such an interesting way of experiencing stories. For Coven, both of us actually experienced two different sides of the spectrum. Coven 1934 was about a Dust Bowl town in Texas where there were these supernatural crossroads that were bringing a lot of unnatural energy in the form of three unnatural factions: light, dark, and wild. Light being like angelic beings, dark being like demonic devil beings, and wild being fae and wild beings. I played a wild being, but on the other side of the coin we had the touched and mundane players, which were human, which Astrid got to play. And you played specifically you were touched.
Yeah, you had the mundane, who are like humans who completely didn't know anything about the unnatural things happening, and then the touched people, who are like sort of in between, where most of them had some kind of connection. Either you yourself were involved in it or you knew about it. And I was in the touched area in between.
Yeah, oh god. So, quick rundown on the character. I played a former human who became fae and joined the saloon to basically become a sex worker and alcoholic, because that is all that she lived for. And Syriinx, you played?
I played a part of the Coven in Covenant, the town, which was a group of wise women, totally not witches, that have been in the town for a long time and kind of protect the magical core that's in the town, which is called the Crossroads. So you had this like these magical ley lines that all the unnatural beings wanted to use and get for their own side, and the Coven was this group of women who was trying to protect that, trying to keep balance between three different factions. And I played one of the witches there, the mystical and tuned Naomi there.
So these are just two perspectives. There were, what, 120 players in this game? I don't know the exact number offhand, but what I really wanted to talk to you about is the impact of story that came through LARP. So let's start with you. What is like one of the first things that you noticed specifically in Coven 1934? Because you and I are experienced in different kinds of LARPs, but specifically here, what was one of the most like impactful things that you noticed as a touched mundane player?
I think the first like immediate thought that comes is not even just as a touched one, but specifically the immersion that the location and the group of people brought to the game from the first moment on.
Oh yeah.
That was so impactful. I remember like stepping into the town on like that first day for the first time, and you just see it in real life, and it's just like, this is a ghost town. This is the town that you're supposed to play in. This feels so real. I am an inhabitant of this little town for the next 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
And that comes with the location, but also the way people are dressed up and the way it was like the layout where everyone was just kind of standing around. It felt, in these days, you'll never see people just standing around outside, and then it felt so accurate for people to just be standing around in this town. Like, the immersion the moment you stepped in was so impactful. I was like, I can't believe it's so special. It's not just one room that they had to decorate, right? They had this entire town that they decorated that was in theme. And it was amazing. I remember that the first time I was walking, I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that comes with LARPs across the board, but specifically with Jackalope LARP, who we worked with for this one, they literally rented out a ghost town, which I believe was a set for The Walking Dead.
Parts of it.
Yeah, parts of it. So it was a fantastic location, and that's definitely something that comes from LARPs. A lot of the times, if you're playing in, well, out of your time period, you're going to need a particular set to create that deep immersion, and in this one, we had a literal ghost town in Texas to play in, and that definitely helped the immersion, which when telling a story in this medium, it's really about the individual players, because there's no story is going to be the same between any individual player. So being on this set really created this interesting magic, I want to say, that really pulled it together. And with that, you bring up a very interesting part. So for me, one of the biggest impacts was particularly so Jackalope LARP does a lot. In fact, I believe all of their LARPs are pre-generated character LARPs. I don't know if they'll ever expand out of that, but that's what their focus is. And having everyone have a clear concept of who their characters were and what was bestowed to them, and then being in these locations, you really breathe the character in a way that's so unlike anything else. And I'm looking to actors here, where I know how it feels to be in a play or on a film set, and you have those sometimes like rare, deep immersion that you get on set telling a story. But there is something very liberating and free that LARPs present, where you are really breathing the character, and every person that you interact with is expecting you to perform that character effectively. Like, if you're on set, you know, they call cut, and then everyone around you is people on set. But when you're in LARP, there is no cut. You can get out of character, you can go into an out of character zone and kind of decompress, but other than that, the next person you turn around, they're expecting you to be whatever character that you were trying, or whoever you were being.
And the fact that they made pre-written characters and they made the story around a town and its inhabitants, they built all the characters in these like small groups of like families, because you were part of a family. I wasn't, but I was part of like a found family. And you have these like smaller groups where all the characters are pre-written in, but then they gave you connections outside of your small little group to, one, connect all of them together, but then also all of these families, as in real life, and those like tiny communities back then, they made the big part of this is the pillar of the community, and almost every group also had like one pillar in them that was like the leader position of that family or that like little group. Which all made it so realistic, and also made it so easy to portray, okay, this is an actual community back in those days, this is an actual town. And it leans into the location where it's like the pre-written stuff is just so good for making you feel connected and in the story. You don't have to look for a way in. You automatically start with a place in the story.
Oh, yeah. And actually, that makes me think, too, with the family units, and with this LARP in particular, because it was a historical LARP, and not necessarily, it wasn't perfect history replicated, but it was a very clear step into trying to immerse people in this time and place, which included some pretty difficult topics to address too, which included racism, sexism, general bigotry, which I like absolutely need to point out the attention to detail and the care for the players when addressing these subjects, and doing it in a way that included the perspectives of the affected groups. There was nothing that was written for this story or this game that was not considered by impacted parties. And it was something where you could opt into these interactions or you could opt out, and everyone felt safe and it was like regulated. It wasn't like an uncomfortable experience for anyone who got involved. And I think that's really important for immersion, especially when you're dealing with something with such tragedy in this form of history, you know what I mean? What did you think? Did you experience any of that play? Because I didn't necessarily, but I did mark myself as someone who could be engaged with for that play.
We, like, as a group, experienced it a little bit. Being a character who didn't have any feet on the ground as in the mundane normal society.
Oh yeah.
Because I played a character who very much, like, all she had ever known was being with her head in the clouds, literally. Being like, nothing really matters, nothing feels real except for this magical energy that we have and this crossroads and stuff. So she'd never been in normal society. She'd never been included in any, like, real human interactions outside of her coven. So for me, I had less playing it personally, as in my character was head in the sky, not down to earth with the very serious problems that were also going on. Because in her mind, there were other very serious problems as well that were more prevalent for her, being all these unnatural beings are going to take the crossroads away. But we did have a little bit of play with it, of course, because with the Coven, the Coven had come settle in Covenant from, I believe it was German settlers. And then you had the Comanche, who were the original, like, witches in Covenant, who had worked together a little bit in the past, and then the Comanche had gone away, the Coven had stayed, and now, in this point of time in the game, because the town was so in danger, and the Coven was losing people left and right, one of the Coven members had called the Comanche people back, like the rescue party, back in to help out. And we had that confrontation of, like, that tense moment of, you guys took over or took place, you didn't have it under control clearly right now, you need us right now. And some of the group, like me, were like, yeah, absolutely, we need you right now. Like, of course we need you, absolutely, please help us. And then you had others who were a little bit more hesitant in that group, in the character as it was written, to be like, no, we don't need your help, we're fine, we don't need your help, you can go again. Which eventually ended up solving as, no, we actually do need to work together. And nice thing about that was that at the end of the story, I think it was, we had, like, guardians of the crossroads. And one of the guardians was a Comanche witch, and then one of the guardians was a Coven witch. Wow. And that was actually a really nice, symbolical way to end that story. But we had, a little bit of interaction with it, as for sure.
Oh, yeah. And that is what I think is really important about, I mean, not every LARP is going to have a historical element to it, and not all are going to be touched by serious topics like this. But for LARPs that do have those things, I think it's really important that the writers are informed or affected parties. And with Jackalope LARP specifically, because that's what we're talking about here, they put a lot of attention into those things. So kudos is the word I think I was thinking about before. Absolute kudos to them on including that and allowing it to be played out in a way that was safe and effective. So I guess, I mean, there's definitely way more to say. I'm going to say more in my recap, and I'm sure you have a lot to say in your recap too. Is there any final thoughts that you have, at least on the topic of immersion? Or impact, I should say. Impact or immersion in storytelling?
I think one more thing that's very impactful for when you're playing and when you're starting a game like this, and especially as it progresses through the amount of days that you have, for us it was 2 days, it's very important that you don't play to win a game. And it was very clear, especially to the ones, like, it was written in the Coven that you want to try and fix things, you want to try and get that balance, but it's very clear to you in the way that the themes of the story were written out, but also as you were progressing through the story, that there was no way of just winning. There was no good ending. And as a player, it's very liberating to know, I'm gonna lose. I will not be winning. I have this amount of time left. How do I want to lose in the way that's most impactful and most interesting?
Yeah.
And just sitting with that thought and calibrating with other players with the knowledge of, I'm gonna lose. I want to do the most interesting thing while I'm losing. Yes. And It's so impactful, and I don't think you, as much as you would want to, you don't start with that thought. It only really sinks in as you're playing and as you, because we have this innate want to try and win or do the best we can, and we'll always start with that. But then like sitting down and being like, no, actually, what would be the most interesting move here, knowing that I'll lose? They did a great job with that one, and it was so impactful to play it out, and that made the ending so impactful, which I'm sure you'll talk about in your video.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made it all come together so nicely at the end.
Yeah, I want to speak on that too, to writers in general. We kind of go into these stories sometimes thinking that we need these characters that we're writing to come through successfully, but considering their failures is really important. And I think I've learned that the most in TTRPGs and LARPs. So if that's something that you're writing and you haven't quite clicked yet, definitely consider these mediums to explore storytelling in a different way, because I know it is going to impact your narrative writing in a way that you will not expect and will absolutely love. So with that little button on everything, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, we're going to do another video over on Syriinx's channel, so I will have links all around. Please go ahead and subscribe over there to her. And if you're coming over here to me, feel free to drop or subscribe. I would appreciate it as well. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye!